Hey y'all, it's Dark Sugar Podcast coming to you fresh out the packet with everything black. Dark Sugar.
Hey y'all, welcome to Dark Sugar Podcast. It is your host, Kiana, and today we are going to be talking about the infamous psychological phenomenon known as Imposter Syndrome. And this topic has been so heavy on my mind, on my spirit, integrated through my life. I've been talking with my friends, my family about it because I have been experiencing it my whole entire life. And it wasn't until a year ago, Emma, our co-creator, when she pointed it out and she was like, girl, hold on, stop. And she completely stopped me in my tracks and she's like, wait, you do this thing that I do. And it's called Imposter Syndrome. And I think the most fascinating thing about it is how common it is. And you think, and I don't know, but and then another common symptom of imposter syndrome is we feel like it's only us that like goes through this. That's why it's so shocking to hear that other, like the people that I've been talking to that also experience this. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? You're insecure. You doubt who you are. You feel like you're a fraud in your field of expertise. Like this is, it doesn't make any sense, and I want to talk about why we do this to ourselves, situations where we do this to ourselves, and ways and tips to overcome it because it's so hard. So it's the phenomenon of feeling like a fraud. You have doubt of ability despite success or achievements. And an often one is people who have degrees, even multiple degrees, they feel still inadequate according to society's level of intelligence or standard or whatever. They still don't feel smart enough. They still don't feel like what they've accomplished is enough, you would say. And it can show up in new environments, academic settings, in the workplace, and social interactions. And personally for me, I think because of my imposter syndrome, it makes me hesitant for new environments. And that's where I can tell you that it can be very debilitating, because if you're constantly talking yourself, if you've been in these situations already where you feel like a fraud, then I feel like you're more likely to talk yourself out of situations where you could show your ability, but due to past, scenarios where you're telling yourself, you're not good enough or not smart enough, even though you are, I feel like that would make you scared to jump into new environments, new experiences. And I can testify that I have experienced that. And in the workplace, and it's so crazy because when it happened, I was just like so called out. But so I'm a substitute teacher working on my certification, but I don't have it yet. And so working as a sub, I can tell you that I've taught all grades. I've had the longest permanent position I've held was 2 months. It was a kindergarten class. Whew. It was really tough, but like I've made lesson plans. I've gone to all the meetings, done trainings, pretty much have done everything a certified teacher would do. But because I am not a certified quote unquote teacher, I feel like I'm not a real teacher, you know what I mean? And I would say that out loud, like to other teachers. I'd be like, oh, like, I'm not like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, ew, why did I say that out loud? But yeah, I would say, oh, I'm not a real teacher, or I don't feel like a real teacher. Or I remember saying something like that, and another coworker, a teacher, looked at me like, you're just as a teacher as anybody else. Like, what do you mean? You do the same shit as everybody else. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, like, yeah, I guess. But in that moment, I did feel like a fraud. I had this constant feeling at work, like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to find out kind of like that I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to find out that I'm not qualified, even though I am qualified. And, I do have the experience and I am a good teacher and I am still learning. Like, you know what I mean? But this imposter and it's also fueled with anxiety and insecurities and other things, but it can just be so hurtful to yourself. And it, if anything, it creates a lot more shame than we realize. And so in social interactions, oh my God, in social interactions, totally, with my friends, I feel like my friends hate me sometimes. And it's like, of course, or I feel like my friends are going to find out that I'm not a good friend. And sometimes I have this constant, I have this constant thought that I'm not a good friend. And like, I almost have like this anxiety. Well, you know what it is? I know it's because I've been doing my Enneagram profile. I'm an Enneagram 2. Relationships are very important to me. So I get anxiety about relationships. And so with my friends, I feel like I'm not a good friend, even though I am a good friend. And I have like many, many reasons that proven I'm a good friend. And no one's perfect. And of course, like, people fuck up, friends fuck up. But I'm not like a fucked up friend. But I don't know. That's interesting. I'm kind of just like realizing now that I have that imposter syndrome about friendships. But yeah, I do have anxiety. And even being in relationships, I kind of feel like, oh no, if he finds out if they find out the real me, they're not going to like me. So, and that also goes into like identity and identity crisis and things like that. But it is a part of me that feels like, the real me isn't good enough. Yeah, if they find out who I really am, then they're going to be like, oh shit. And I don't know. That probably goes back to trauma, honestly, if we're being really, really honest. But, yeah, that's a really interesting one for social interactions. In academic settings, to be honest, I've just never felt smart. And that's just due to learning disabilities that I struggled with. I did really well in school up until middle school when math started to get really hard for me and really abstract, and I couldn't grasp it at all. And so then after that, I just felt pretty dumb. I have, technically on paper, it's dyslexia and dyscalculia, which is really funny because, ironically enough, I did not read my diagnosis chart. I just knew that I didn't have to take math in college after they did the testing. So I was like, okay, great. But anyway, that for that one, like, and yeah, I guess that is still imposter syndrome, because even though I did graduate and I do have a bachelor's degree, it still doesn't feel like anything to me. Even though the way I should look at it is like, yo, this is even more of a, comment to my resilience that I made it through college with learning disabilities. So I should look at it that way instead of being so hard on myself. So it's just really crazy. I've been unpacking all of these things that I've been thinking about, all these narratives that I have about myself. I've been unpacking them and I've been like, oh my God, this is how I've been talking to myself my whole life. No wonder I feel so weird in my social interactions sometimes, in my relationships. I get anxiety, like no wonder, because I have this voice telling me that, like, critiquing me all the time. And if you have that voice critiquing you all the time and giving you anxiety, it's hard to relax and show up as your full self. And we are definitely going to do a part 2 on this, because I want to talk more about showing up in the workplace as a person of color and how that's an imposter syndrome in itself. Because as a person of color, I feel like I'm constantly trying to be somebody else when I step out the door, or I'm hyper aware of who I am and how society or how white people see me. So that's a really strong pillar in itself, an imposter syndrome. So then, so what I was looking up about imposter syndrome, and I'm sure there are way more types, but that we could break down here. But they have it broken down into 5 types of imposters, quote unquote. So we have the perfectionist, the expert, natural genius, soloist, superman, superwoman, superperson. How about that? Superperson. So let me break down each one. So the perfectionist imposter is sorry, I can't talk. Set extremely high expectations for themselves. And even if they meet 99% of their goals, they're going to feel like failures. Okay, so this is a person who may be very particular about everything they do. They're labeled as an actual perfectionist, like in their personality. Yeah, and just almost like nothing's ever good enough for them, I feel. Experts, next one. Feel the need to know every piece of information before they start a project. They won't apply for a job if they don't meet all the criteria in the posting. And they might be hesitant to ask a question in class or speak up in a meeting at work because they're afraid of looking stupid if they don't already know the answer. Okay, this is definitely me because I get so self-conscious when I don't know. Obviously, no one knows everything, but there's a lot I don't know. And so I feel in situations it's hard for people to explain things to me sometimes. And so I often never ask questions. I don't want to look stupid. Yeah. And it's because if I feel like if I don't already know it, then it's just like, fuck it. I know that's so bad. I don't like that one, but I do it. Okay. Natural genius has to struggle or work hard to accomplish something. He or she thinks this means they aren't good enough. Has to struggle or work. Oh, wait, this is me too. Fuck. Has to struggle or work. Yeah, they are used to skills coming easily. And when they have to put in effort, their brain tells them it's proof that they're an imposter. Oh my God, this is totally me. If I struggle with something, I think it's because I'm dumb and it makes me want to give up. That's so weird. Soloists feel like they have to accomplish tasks on their own. Feel like if they need to ask for help, they think that means that they're a failure or a fraud. Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially, you could be multiple of these. I feel like if you're a perfectionist, you might also identify with the soloist too. Okay, super person. Push themselves to work harder than those around them to prove that they are not imposters. They feel the need to succeed in all aspects of life, at work, as parents and partners, and may feel stressed when they're not accomplishing something. I don't think that one's me. Push themselves to work harder. No, I don't do that. I don't think that one's me. But I can see how may feel stressed. Wait. Succeed in all aspects, like as parents and as partners, because relationships are important to me. When I feel like I'm not succeeding in my relationships, that is stressful. So I kind of identify with that one. Okay, and so why is imposter syndrome so harmful? It is so harmful because, and let me go all the way back, because I was talking with our co-creator Emma, her partner Whitney. We were speaking the other day, and on our part 2, we're gonna wrap it and bring it all together for you guys, because I was telling them who, like, low key, this imposter. Okay, I know I don't want to romanticize personality disorders, but I'm really like, wow, I wonder where this inner critic came from. I don't really yes, I did have a traumatic childhood. Obviously, I know those situations can formulate negative self-talk and things like that, but I didn't have anyone straight up say, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're ugly. Like, I didn't have anyone bully me and say that, and to think like, wow, like the situations that I was in that made me feel this way, I spoke these words to myself for so long. And I remember my therapist in college, she told me, because I didn't even realize it to this extent, but I just started to realize, like, oh, I'm like kind of mean to myself. Like, when I talk to myself, like, my self-esteem's not that great. And she was like, well, yeah, think how long you've been telling yourself these things, like, for years. It's going to take probably twice as long to read. She's like, think of your brain as a computer. I always say this. Think of your brain as a computer. And you've done this input for so long, for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, you've done this input. And now, instead of doing zeros, you're trying to hit one. And now you're hitting the one button, and it's supposed to, you know what I mean? Like, you have to hit it until it covers and re-inputs the whole system. And it's like, do you know how long that takes? It's going to take a very long time. So just chill. Don't be so hard on yourself. But yeah, it's detrimental because, oh my God, if anything, it leads you into more of a depression. You're harder on yourself. When you start to believe that inner critic, you don't put yourself in certain situations that are going to reaffirm that. So for instance, if you think you're ugly, and if you've told yourself that you're ugly, you're probably not going to like to take pictures. You're probably not going to put yourself in pictures. You're probably not going to learn how to pose better, how to even learn your angles to even get your good. Like, you're probably not going to do that. Therefore, no, people aren't probably going to comment on your photos. What photos? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not going to put yourself out there, if you feel that type of way, if you feel inadequate in a, area of academia or certain profession or whatever, then the less chances you're going to put yourself out there for certain opportunities, and then the less opportunities you're going to get, and then therefore you're going to believe the imposter. You're going to be like, yeah, I am stupid. I'm not getting the job. Yeah, I am. Like, you know what I mean? And you're going to take everything as a dig. Everything's going to be painful. It's just, you're going to go in a pit. And I'm so glad I didn't go all the way down and I like really caught myself, because I'm only 26. Like, I know people that have felt this way and died this way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so glad if you're listening, if you're just realizing this, or if you've never had this issue, or if you do have this issue and you're working through it, like, I'm so glad that now is the time. Like, it's hard because, I mean, it's okay to grieve past time. Because all that time I was speaking so negatively to myself, I do grieve it. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I could have been doing so many more things, but instead I was just so I was so down on myself. Sorry. I was just so down on myself. And I'm just like, wow, but all you can do is move forward now. But positive affirmations, my therapist told me to put sticky notes on my mirror. One says I am lovable. The other one says I am worthy. And the next one says I am pretty inside and out. And I have those, and I say those 4 days a week. I try to. Or I'm just like trying to say them to myself during the day, or when I start speaking negatively of myself, I'll be like, okay, that's nice, but, and then I say my positive affirmations. I'll be like, I am worthy. I am lovable. I'll just be like, okay, that's nice, but, and then I'll just throw my affirmations in. But honestly, that's been the biggest step, and giving yourself compassion, because you don't want to get hard on yourself for being hard on yourself. That's a whole other rabbit hole. I'm telling you not to do it, but I do it. It's hard. But you really want to go easy on yourself. Being your own critic is so tiring. It is so hard on your body. It drains your own energy. It's exhausting. So rest, meditate, be alone, get some books, start journaling, ask yourself those important questions. What do I want out of my life? How do I feel about myself and why? And start to unpack it all, because it all intertwines together. Me thinking that I'm ugly, me thinking that I'm stupid, me thinking that I'm not worthy of love, like that all connects to certain situations that have really hurt me and have framed a perspective about myself. And so unpacking the roots of the imposter, like I've read memes and I've even done some myself where I say, like, talk to that inner critic. Say, why do you think this way? Why do you say that? Where do you get this evidence? What happened? What's the situation that makes you feel that way? And it's when they first started studying imposter syndrome, they studied it. They say that they find that it happens in men and women equally, just about, but they studied it in women, and they were doing studies with female CEOs, finding how they felt about themselves and their accomplishments, their in their employment. And it was, the self-esteem was pretty low, even though they were in these leadership positions. So it's very interesting that I can only imagine how that trickles down to the diversity barrier of people of color, Black people, non-binary people in the LGBTQ community. Like, I can only imagine how that trickles down, because already not fitting in society, not being white, you feel like an imposter. You feel like society makes you feel like an imposter. But yeah, and I tell myself that it is okay to validate those feelings of being an imposter, but we have to remind ourselves that those feelings are simply not true.